Okay, then, gents, let's now focus on the managerial merry-go-round in the Premier League. Antonio Conte has arrived at Tottenham. Eddie Howe has arrived at Newcastle. Dean Smith is out at Aston Villa. Daniel Farke is out at Norwich City. So a lot has happened when it comes to managers since the last time we spoke. And a lot of it wasn't expected either, I think it's fair to say. So firstly, when we think about Aston Villa moving on from Dean Smith, Andy, I'm going to come to you first. Do you think that's the right call or a bit premature for Villa?
I was surprised. So I had Aston Villa on Friday when they lost to Southampton. They're 1-0, and so one of the three things I wrote was seat getting hot for Dean Smith question mark. Just kind of putting it on the table. This is something that we're going to have to start looking at here probably in the coming weeks if things don't turn around at Aston Villa. And then 3 days later, he's already gone. So I was a little bit surprised that it came down that quickly. I know 5 games, 5 defeats in a row in the Premier League is never a good look. But we're talking about a club that just last season was right there up until the final day, pushing for a top half finish under Dean Smith. Dean Smith is the one that guided them up from the Championship, kept them in the Premier League the first season with a little help from some failed goal line technology, if I recall correctly. But he took them to those heights, and then they sell the best player that the club has had in how many decades in the summer, and he gets 11 games after that to put together a new team, to completely reset and reinvent what this team has been in 11 games. It seems really, really quick. Now, if the players were no longer responding and he had lost the dressing room, you have to take that into consideration. We're not privy to those things. It seemed like he did a lot for that club in a pretty short amount of time, and he got even less time, I think, to kind of save himself. And that's a little unfortunate, I think, for Dean Smith.
I agree with you. I think the only thing I would say is that I feel like the slump or the rot kind of set in towards the end of last season. And in the statement from the club, they did say over the calendar year, we haven't seen enough progress from the team. So, I thought it was harsh considering, they've been missing some big players recently, Danny Ings, Douglas Luiz. If you sack him, who's coming in next? I mean, I feel like a club that is as well run under Christian Purslow as Aston Villa is, surely you have to have a replacement ready to come in right away, and that's the reason you did it. I mean, Nick, it doesn't appear like that's the case. I mean, Steven Gerrard is at the top of Villa's wish list. That's what all the reports are saying. Do you think he would leave Glasgow Rangers to right now to go to Aston Villa? Is that a sideways step, or I'm just a bit confused because he is good friends with Purslow and there's a connection there. So you can understand some of these names being linked, but Roberto Martinez is another one, Thomas Frank, Ralph Hasenhüttl. I'm just a bit confused. What do you think about this situation? Do you think they were right to move on from Smith, and who would you like to see come in next?
Well, I don't think they're necessarily right to move on from Smith. I do understand it did feel like the last few weeks that maybe some of the chances that they were taking were a bit of a throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Tyrone Mings was taken out of the lineup at least one time. I think he's still their best defender, even though he can make a gaffe every now and again. And maybe the answers weren't there. I think he's a good manager. The biggest issue I have isn't removing him or even not having someone in mind. It's that all the candidates we keep hearing about are people who are going to have the same experiential struggles that I think Dean Smith has had, right? If Gerrard takes over, first of all, I read something where Villa fans, and again, this is gossiping online, would want him to sign something to say he's not a pledge to not leave for the Liverpool job. Well, if you want to put that out there, then you don't want Steven Gerrard to come, to come to you. Gerrard also can stay in Scotland and keep finishing in either first or second almost every year until the Liverpool job is open if he wants. He ended Celtic's run for a historic 10th title in a row, and that means a pretty big deal over there in Glasgow. I just look at the other names. John Terry doesn't have experience. Frank Lampard has proven absolutely nothing, in my opinion. Who else are you going to get? Nuno, right? It's the same thing that happened to Man United applies kind of here, unless you think Ronald Koeman or something like that is a missing piece. And that's why I don't like this, just because I don't know what the plan is otherwise, because we've seen a lot of managerial switches where the guy who comes in is clearly not as good as the guy who left. And that's what Villa's risking.
Andy, what about Norwich City then? Same kind of question with them. Daniel Farke, it seemed that they only just backed him publicly. The sporting director and the owners there. They won at Brentford, and then within a few hours of them winning at Brentford, the statement come out that he's gone. So what direction are they going in now? Because again, that's another club where they're taking their time. They didn't seem to have anybody else lined up. Dean Smith might actually end up going to Norwich. There's talk of Frank Lampard already having talks with Norwich, and they want Ralph Hasenhüttl again. So there's a lot of very different managers being linked to these jobs. So that, to me, says neither of these teams really knows what direction they want to go in, right? And for Norwich, it's easy. They can continue going up and down and having a young manager, produce young players and make money that way. Or do they go with a Sam Allardyce or someone like this just to try and keep them in the Premier League for a couple of years and do something a bit different because they've tried the other way? So what do you think about Norwich?
Yeah, so I also had Norwich on the weekend, and I did see them win a game, first time in 18 or 19 Premier League games that they had done so. So well done to them. Well done, Daniel Farke. We'll see you. Go on and head out now. I was shocked by this, and the fact it happened so quickly afterwards. We were immediately into the group chat, and our speculation was, well, they're doing this because they know exactly who they're going for. And that's the only reason you do this after a win. That's the only reason you do this to someone as tenured as Farke in that position. And again, a little similar to Dean Smith, done a lot at that club in a pretty short period of time. And so you would have thought maybe he gets a little bit more, but he's gone down with them once already. So our thought, I think initially was, well, Nuno came available this week. That seems to be kind of a good fit for a team that's going to be down there in that relegation battle. He will get them set up defensively. All due respect to Nuno, that's more his level where he needs to be at than Tottenham, where there's any talk of European places. I think he could do well there. But if they're not in a hurry, if they've not done something already, that's clearly not the case. And so, again, it's just another example of, okay, you didn't like who you had, but at least he was familiar. At least he was set up. And now you've got him out, and it could be a while. Like, it's not a desirable job at all, because you have to expect you're going down in the summer, and nobody wants to go down to the Championship when you start in the Premier League. So I don't know, is Nuno too high of a name? Could they even get as high as Nuno in terms of stature in the game?
Yeah, I think even someone like Frank Lampard will see it as quite a risk, because he's obviously coached in the Championship before, but I think he sees himself as a Premier League manager now. So what manager really takes the risk to go down and then try and bring a club back up again? That's very, very difficult to do. But yeah, I'll miss Daniel Farke from the Premier League. I really enjoyed his press conferences. Always a really nice guy, and just, yeah, one of the good guys, and did a very good job at Norwich with very, very limited resources to play some of the football they did, especially in the Championship. But I think the big thing was they didn't seem to learn their lessons from the last time they were in the Premier League. They were doing exactly the same things, and it wasn't working. So that decision was probably made before they beat Brentford, right? That was just kind of a by the way. So anyway, let's talk about Newcastle United. Nick Mandola, our resident Newcastle expert. Eddie Howe's in. We saw him watching on from the stands when they drew away at Brighton. We expected this, but do you think it's a good fit? Because technically he's going to be a lot more entertaining to watch Newcastle, the way he sets the team up, attractive football. We saw that at Bournemouth, but I have some concerns over the defensive issues that Newcastle have had. I do not think Eddie Howe is going to fix those problems. So are we about to see a lot of 3-2 and 4-3 wins for Newcastle? Because they have the attacking players to fit a system quite well, don't they? So are you optimistic about Eddie Howe?
Yes, I am. I'll tell you why. First of all, Steve Bruce wasn't very good at his job. Second of all, Graham Jones may have been worse. Graham Jones did not put Federico Fernandez, who by all accounts is a pretty decent footballer, in the 18 because, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said, yeah, I think he's a guy who either needs to play the whole game or not play at all. Okay. Wow. All right. Your defense stinks, dude. Like, sorry, I got really fired up about that. So I think what Eddie Howe can do is he can carry some of the momentum of seeing goals and getting the best out of St. Maximin, of trying to get the best out of Callum Wilson, of seeing if Miguel Almiron can be exciting. And if you do lose games 4-2 or 4-3, right, like you're getting goals, get to January. Everybody knows they need to get to January. The thing that's killing me about all these managerial changes, and I think makes a little bit of sense, and maybe why Norwich does it when a guy like Eddie Howe is seemingly snapped up, is because teams are realizing if they don't have a superior plan, there's only so many bad teams in the league this year. I think Newcastle right now is one of them. Norwich is one. Burnley is kind of one as well. I know Cornet, has done a lot to make us get excited, and rightly so, about them having proper attacking talent to go with Dwight McNeil and Chris Wood. But I just think there aren't very many bad teams. And even Watford, who has dropped a little bit, has shown they can score 5 against Everton. And that's what we talked about for a while. I was making this point, and it didn't always make sense to me, but that I thought the games between the top 6 teams were going to be really important this year, because no one's really getting a week off anymore. So your chance to take points off your direct rivals is so important. At the bottom, Newcastle can take 6 from Norwich, and Norwich can take 6 from Burnley, and they're still going to end up with 13 points right now. So can Eddie Howe get them to January still feeling good about the takeover? And I think he can.
Yeah, and then he can make the additions that he needs, especially defensively, to try and build a foundation there and get Newcastle out of trouble. So yeah, managerial merry-go-round is still swinging. There's still a few clubs without a manager, Villa and Norwich. But we'll keep you updated on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com with all the latest news, who's coming in, who's going out. I'm sure there's going to be more outgoings between now and January. That's just the way it is. Seems like a lot of Premier League teams are panicking at the moment, quite early in the season. The last few years has been a bit calmer with managers coming in and out, but now all hell just broke loose over the last few days. So the international period, always a very dodgy one for managers, and it's proven to be the case for plenty of them this time around.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.